Raptors get smoked by the Knicks. Turnovers and three-point problems persist. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting knees right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
All right, folks. So the Raptors lost to the New York Knicks. It was a tale of two halves. New York absolutely destroyed them in the second half of this game. And it was a combination of two things, in my opinion: turnovers and a lack of three-point shooting. The Raptors had 20 turnovers in this game compared to the Knicks 16. Now, you might not say that's a lot, but the Knicks ended up shooting 11 more shots than the Raptors. More specifically, they ended up shooting 12 more threes than the Raptors and making 7 more threes. In that second half, in that third quarter, where the Raptors completely lost this game, the Raptors attempted just 1 3. Throughout the second half, they attempted a total of 3. That's a big issue for the Raptors this season, who currently rank 24th in three-point attempts and 26th in three-point percentage. When it comes to facing these awesome offensive teams that especially like to shoot like the Knicks do, or like the Celtics, or like the Sixers, or a lot of Eastern Conference teams they might face in the playoffs, the Raptors come into the problem of a math problem. So I think the Raptors' issues turnover-wise tonight actually relates to their three-point problem. Now, as you see here, the Raptors are running a pick and roll with Emmanuel Quickley, and I want you to observe the spacing that the Knicks kind of assume here as Quickley drives this basket. So, OG Anunoby helps off of the strong side, helping off of Brandon Ingram here in the corner. There's an open Mamu in the weak side dunker spot area with Josh Hart picking up, right? And Jacoby Walter is the other guy here in this area. But if you see the defense is pretty tight, not a lot of opportunities for IQ to get his shots off, and especially against the length of Emmanuel Quickley, of Mikal Bridges, not a lot of passing opportunities. So the Raptors had to get creative with those passing windows, and he tries to find Mamu, and that's a turnover. Pretty similar situation here from the Raptors. Pick and roll between Jamal Shead and Scotty Barnes. And as we see here, playmaking opportunities, right? So this time Karl Anthony Towns is not helping off of the strong side corner because Grady Dick is on the strong side corner. But Shead has a few playmaking opportunities. One is this weak side, and one is Brandon Ingram here on the opposite wing. And so now this is basically a choice between Mikal Bridges which way he wants to go, right? It's this way or this way to intercept this pass. But I think Shead telegraphs this pass way too early, and he makes this an ill-advised pass. I will say, though, again, I think that is a bit of a spacing issue from the Raptors because they weren't able to get too much, pressure on their pick and roll coverages here to where the help defense had to help out. This is actually the perfect explanation here. So the Raptors get a Scotty Barnes post-up, which is what they love. But if you look at the spacing, it's not necessarily the greatest here. RJ Barrett is going to cut, to clear out this side for Scotty. Emmanuel Quickley on the weak side corner. Colin Murray-Boyles in this dunker spot. Brandon Ingram basically outside of the play here to kind of reset if necessary. And again, not a ton of opportunities. You see OG creeping up and helping, and this is a tactic the Knicks used a bunch. If you look at where they are, actually, this is a perfect way to describe the Knicks' defense against the Raptors. It's boxes and elbows. So OG at the nail here, Josh Hart with help, and so not a lot of opportunities for Scotty Barnes to, one, attack Mikal Bridges and try to score, and two, to be able to create an advantage to find other players. And as you see here, Brandon Ingram trying to prepare himself to catch this ball, but ultimately he's trying to get a shot for Emmanuel Quickley, finds this weak side, Quickley isn't ready, and that's a turnover. And this is another aspect that I think is important to mention. When the Raptors wings, especially Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram aren't able to impose their will physically. Now, Brandon Ingram had a really good night offensively tonight, but when Ingram or Scotty aren't able to physically outmatch their opponents, I think they get into trouble here. And as you see, as every Raptors fan knows, OG Anunoby is a very, very strong defender, incredible, hands, incredible recovery. Scotty going one on one against him, not necessarily going to yield the best results. And so this right here, as he goes one on one, again, helping off that strong side corner. Tyler Kolek here to help. As you see, boxes and elbows, so not a ton of spacing to try and wrap this pass around to Grady Dick or to Jamal Shed. And so Scotty is going to turn this ball over trying to score. And so, folks, yeah, I think it's a combination of things for the Raptors, and it really gets exacerbated in games against the New York Knicks. And this is now their third game against the Knicks, so we've seen them kind of over and over again the exact same recipe, which is they play the Knicks tight for the most part to start the game, and then the 3-point variance just punches them straight in the face. And I think the same thing happens against the Celtics. I think when the Sixers are fully healthy, when they have Joel Embiid and Paul George, it's sort of a similar thing. And ultimately, it's kind of the reason the Raptors struggle against these very, very good teams. The Raptors are now 1-9 against the rest of the top four teams in either conference. So that includes their loss to the Spurs early in the season, their loss to the Rockets early in the season, their couple of losses to the Celtics, their couple of losses to the Knicks, the 3 losses to the Knicks, and of course their loss to the Nuggets. Now, they also beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that is their first win that they had against a top team. And of course, that's a very impressive win. We just came off a 4-game win streak, right? This isn't doomsday here for the Raptors, but it is important to highlight that this offense hasn't been good as of late. Now, for what it's worth, in the month of January, their offense has been top, I think it was 12th this month. Overall, their offense is 19th. And I think the reason their offense has looked better as of late, it's a very simple answer. The shooting had come around. Emmanuel Quickley was knocking down his shots. He was obviously taking a lot of 3-point shots as well. And we didn't see him tonight do that. IQ tonight was 3 of 9 from the field. He only took 2 threes, and he had 3 turnovers. I think it's honestly insane that he only took 2 threes. And I don't think that's an issue of like, hey, IQ, you have to shoot this ball. It's finding ways to maximize Emmanuel Quickley as a shooter. The Raptors need to find better ways to do it. And granted, they have been finding better ways to do it. I think, for the most part, nothing has changed other than IQ is hitting his shots. But overall, one of the first possessions of this game was Emmanuel Quickley knocking down a catch and shoot 3. And there is a clear trend of the shot making that we've seen from him over the last 4 or 5 games. There is more catch and shoot opportunities for him. The Jamal Shed, Emmanuel Quickley lineups have been very successful. They are the best 2-man lineup for the Raptors this season of lineups that have played more than 200 minutes together. The reason for that is because, boom, Emmanuel Quickley is playing off ball more. He can be a scorer. Both of those guys can get into the paint in various ways, and that helps the Raptors' offense flow a little bit better. But when you are entirely reliant on Brandon Ingram mid-range post-up stuff and Scotty Barnes mid-range post-up stuff, it forces those 2 guys to be the primary source of shot creation, and not just for themselves, but for other guys to get going, for RJ Barrett to get going, for Emmanuel Quickley to get going, for the bench guys to get going as well. And I was looking this up, after the game. Brandon Ingram assists Emmanuel Quickley more than he assists any other player on the team. RJ Barrett also assists Emmanuel Quickley more than he assists anybody else on the team. Scotty Barnes assists RJ Barrett the most, but Emmanuel Quickley the second most on the team. So IQ benefits a ton from the gravity of Brandon Ingram, of Scotty Barnes, of RJ Barrett. And I'm not trying to take away from that. I think it's very important that those 2 work in tandem together. That being said, they did not do that tonight. I think the reason was one, turnovers. 100% turnovers were a big issue to them not being able to generate as many quality looks as possible. But two, why did they turn the ball over? We saw in a lot of those plays, defense for the Knicks was pinched in, right? It didn't allow for, and we'll get to Brandon Ingram here. There's a couple of Brandon Ingram moments I want to highlight, but defense was really pinched in on Scotty and BI, and it didn't allow them to create opportunities for themselves, to put pressure on the defense. And it forced basically, the Raptors weren't able to get their offense humming as much as possible. They had 20 assists tonight, and granted, they couldn't hit shots. They were 38% from the field, 26% from three. Like, you're not going to win a lot of basketball games shooting that poorly. But I think there's a reason they shot poorly. I think it was because their stars in Scotty and BI weren't able to get the other guys going as much as they should have. That said, Brandon Ingram did have a good offensive game. He finished with 27 points. He was 10 of 16 from the field. Really, as a scorer, he weaponized the mid-range game, the shooting, the ability to get his own shot off the bounce in a really, really impressive way. This is why they've brought Brandon Ingram to this roster, is so that in dire moments, right, when the half-court offense gets grimy, Brandon Ingram can take advantage. That said, I think there are a lot of opportunities for Brandon Ingram to be a better playmaker for this Raptors team. He only had 2 assists tonight. I think he could have had more. So let's talk about Brandon Ingram, his playmaking, and in tandem with his scoring. Tons of attention coming to Brandon Ingram early in this game, and he attacks here, but I just want to keep note of the spacing that BI is usually dealing with. Like, he's working in a sliver of space offensively. And so you see here, they completely help off of Colin Murray-Boyles, right? So this could be a pass out here, and maybe Colin can reset, find Emmanuel quickly, right? They find something. But it's also just this is a more efficient shot for the Raptors right now. That said, you kind of need to get better opportunities when you are seeing this much attention. And if you look at this, all 5 guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all guys have their eyes on Brandon Ingram. And if you look at it, the Raptors spacing isn't all that great, especially on the weak side. 1 guy here camped out, 2 guys in the dunker spot area, and then Scotty Barnes on the strong side corner. I think BI truthfully needs to make this pass a little bit earlier, as we see he's getting into his mid-range bag and there's tons of help coming towards him. I really think he needs to make this pass to Scotty Barnes faster so that he can get this shot or at least get this pass, and the Raptors offense can keep flowing from there. Instead, he gets blocked and Scotty gets the ball. Mamu has been a very good above the break 3-point shooter, but they're still helping out. Scotty Barnes being left alone in the dunker spot, Jacoby Walter in the strong side corner. These are very good options for BI to pass the ball out to. But again, if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys with their attention on Brandon Ingram. He needs to be able to make a play in this opportunity. He needs to be able to make a pass here. And so as he does, I think he does it a little bit too late. I really do think that was too late of a pass. And I think there was a benefit to him maybe finding Mamu here above the break for a 3, and maybe just resetting and finding a different option. But he was late on that, and it resulted in him being able to knock down a catch and shoot 3. So this is going to be a make for Brandon Ingram. And truthfully, guys, it's incredible when he can do something like this, right? Just incredible stuff. But I want to go back here. If we're talking about maximizing Emmanuel quickly and his 3-point shooting ability, you have to be able to get him the ball in certain moments. And so when the defense is pinched in like this, right? When you got 1 guy, 2 guy, 3 guy, 4 guy, everybody is ball watching Brandon Ingram, there's an opportunity here for him to be a playmaker, whether that's, to the weak side here, Jacoby Walter, nice dump off pass to Colin Murray-Boyles, or more importantly, kick out pass to Emmanuel quickly for a 3. And if this requires a hard closeout by Josh Hart, then quickly can attack this closeout and settle into that floater that we've seen him do a million times. So finding opportunities for Emmanuel quickly, these are the opportunities that can be had. And by the way, these shots right here, the difference between an Emmanuel quickly 3 and a Brandon Ingram shot from 3 to 10 feet, it's about the same percentage. Brandon Ingram is shooting 38% right now on these shots. And Emmanuel quickly is shooting 37% on these shots. So the value of IQ shooting a three here is higher than Ingram when it comes to that mid-range shot. Just wanted to highlight that. This didn't just apply to Emmanuel quickly. I thought RJ Barrett could be better making reads. It's also a note on the Raptors' general spacing here. A lot of moments, and I highlighted this early in the season, but a lot of moments where Scotty Barnes is camped out above the break where you could have it so that one of these guys, these shooters, can be here in his place instead and have Scotty filter to this area. I don't know. It's just something that I kind of noted here. But as you see, RJ forces a really tough shot here instead of being able to generate a shot for someone else. And again, note the defensive coverage from the Knicks. Tons of nail help. Just tons of nail help here. And like his reading options aren't the greatest, right? Jamal Shed here above the break, Jacoby Walter on that weak side. Not a lot of playmaking opportunities, so this is the shot that he goes for. And by the way, he was making them, so it's not a problem. But it's just, how do you maximize your opportunities for your teammate? Again, more nail help here from the Knicks, just tons of it. And the Raptors aren't able to capitalize. This is a spacing issue as well. You know, nobody's respecting Jamal Shed here. They're leaving him completely wide open. Just not a lot of playmaking opportunities for Ingram available there. Another similar thing, more nail help. This could be a pass rerouted to RJ Barrett, right? Quickly needs to be spaced to that corner a little bit quicker. But generally, like, this is the spacing that he's worked with relative to the type of coverages that he's dealing with. And you see even OG steps up on a contest here. Yeah, man, them's the breaks. Them's are the breaks for the Toronto Raptors. I think these are the reasons the Raptors offense sputters. And it looks the way it does at times. This is why Emmanuel quickly is so important. And, you know, I know everybody is in Giannis mode right now, as there were reports that, you know, he's trying to potentially leave before the deadline, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody's talking about packages and whatnot. You know what Giannis Antetokounmpo needs? Good shooting. High volume shooting. Guys who can knock down their shots. That's why, in part, you know, the Bucks scheme right now in roster, and I admit the Bucks aren't the best example, but like AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., Bobby Portis, these guys can shoot. You know, if there's one thing those guys can do, it's shoot the ball. And the Bucks have been made in the image of Giannis Antetokounmpo in that way. The Raptors, meanwhile, you know, they struggle to generate threes. They struggle to make threes. And that is why Emmanuel quickly is so important to this Raptors offense. And it's basically like, I wonder what their success rate is when he just takes 2 threes. I really am curious about that. I don't think their win rate is probably high at all when he takes that low of a volume of threes. Now, part of this is aggression and like him knocking down shots and taking them as well. But when you have Scotty Barnes take 13 shots and Brandon Ingram take 16 shots and they combine for 7 assists and 7 turnovers, clearly the playmaking was not good from them tonight. Just wasn't. And they needed more from those guys as playmakers instead of shot takers. And with the coverage that the Knicks were sending at those two guys, there was a lot of opportunity for them to see that coverage, make plays, and get the defense in rotation. I will say, the start of this game was awesome. The Raptors were pushing in transition. They were forcing turnovers. You know, they were, in a lot of ways, playing some of their best defense that I have seen all year. You know, I tweeted this at the start of the half, but it reminded me of the 2019 and 2020 Raptors in the sense that they were on a string on their rotations. The peel switching was seamless. They were doubling and pressuring Jalen Brunson, who overall struggled in this game. Like, Brunson had 13 points on 13 shots. He struggled immensely in this game. Shout out to Scotty Barnes, who was the guy primarily guarding Jalen Brunson tonight. But the issue was Mikal Bridges, 30 points, 4 of 6 shooting. Josh Hart, 22 points, 4 of 7 shooting from 3. OG Anunoby, 26 points, a lot of those in the paint. And he was guarded by RJ Barrett. And so I thought the wings of the Knicks beat the wings of the Raptors in a major way tonight. And as I've mentioned in the past, right? You look at the teams the Raptors have beat. and we'll talk about the OKC win in a second, but Golden State doesn't have size, lacks physicality. And so in those games, Scotty, BI, RJ, they can physically impose themselves. They can be dominant as interior presences, as post presences, as mid range presences. And so that really allows for the Raptors offense to hum. So there's tons of double teams being sent at them. And Emmanuel quickly is getting, spray, catch and shoot threes, attacking closeouts, etc. A lot of opportunities for that against that team or Sacramento. In the case of Portland, I thought it was sort of one of those situations where one, I thought Scotty was incredible in that game, but two, the shot making from Emmanuel quickly really put pressure on the Blazers drop defense. Like schematically, the fact that the Blazers were playing drop against Emmanuel quickly was, it's kind of like pick your poison there, but that's a matchup that IQ can take advantage of very easily. And then OKC, it was a matter of the Thunder not being able to knock down their shots. Granted, the Raptors' defense was excellent, and their defense specifically against SGA and in tandem, the rotations, similar to what we saw in the first half tonight against the Knicks, was very similar. It was very, very similar to what they did against SGA and OKC. The difference was OKC did not hit their shots. OKC is not as good of a three-point shooting team as this Knicks team is, and so you see the conundrum the Raptors have defensively, where if they do load up on a star, think of James Harden against the Clippers, right? Let's think about that a couple weeks ago and how we saw Jordan Miller and Kobe Sanders and John Collins and whatever and Ivica Zubac dominate the Raptors. The reason those guys dominated was because the amount of help that they were sending at the point of attack to James Harden and the pick and roll between him and Zubac. And so when you send more help, there's more opportunities for those shooters. And if that team is a good three-point shooting team, they're going to make them pay 9 times out of 10. That's why that OKC game is it's not an aberration. The Raptors should be commended for winning that game, but it's because the team wasn't a good three-point shooting team. So you look at their competition in the Eastern Conference, and this is where this conversation leads here. But you look at their competition here. Detroit, very similar to what the Raptors are. They see a ton of zone. They don't shoot well. They run this pick and roll stuff with Cade and Duran, which I'm very curious to see how the Raptors defend. But overall, I'm interested to see how they match up against the Raptors because on one side, I think the physicality and athleticism and size that the Pistons have defensively could spell trouble for Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and RJ Barrett. And so how do the Raptors get their game off offensively? It's a major question. But on the other side, I think the Raptors have something for the Pistons offense because I don't think the Pistons can shoot very well. And they also have a three-point volume issue. And so it'll be grind ball. It'll be who can grind more, the Pistons or the Raptors. So I'm very curious to see. I wouldn't say it's a favorable matchup, but it's an interesting matchup nonetheless. The Celtics are not a favorable matchup. They take a ton of threes. They're second in the league in three-point attempts. They're very, very elite at the point of attack. They have tons of guys who can work off the dribble, and Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown, etc. Who knows, right? Derek White. And they also have the size on the inside to crash the offensive glass, generate extra possessions. So it's a tough matchup for the Raptors. I think the three-point shooting would be strugglesome for the Raptors to try and contain and to try and match. The same thing applies to the New York Knicks. Knicks didn't have Mitchell Robinson tonight. And of course, I know what you're saying, Raptors fans. The Raptors don't have Jakob Poeltl. Yes, that's true, but it's clear you can't rely on Jakob Poeltl's availability. So you just have to chalk it up to the fact that Jakob, until he is available, he is no longer available. So in these matchups, I think the Knicks would have a very clear advantage. They have the three-point shooting. They have the offensive repertoire. And I think their wings specifically in an OG, in a McHale, in Josh Hart, and the help defense that they have poses an interesting conundrum for the Raptors' wings. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, we can argue back and forth on if they're a good matchup. The Raptors have obviously handled business against the Cavs overall. I think the Cavs front court is a little bit less physical than some of these other teams that I've mentioned. And so I think the Raptors would be fine matching up against them. That said, they're a good 3-point shooting team. And, they obviously have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland who can go off at any point in time. And the Raptors will struggle against guards like that. So it's more, I still think that would be I'll put that in the Detroit bucket of it being an interesting matchup. The Sixers, much like the Knicks and Celtics, not a favorable matchup for the Raptors. I do not trust their ability in a playoff series against the Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey scores 40 against them almost consistently, and they have the shooting. They have the size to do very similar things that the Celtics and the Knicks would do to them. And that's the top 6 in the Eastern Conference right now. I think the Raptors would take care of business against the current version of the Miami Heat. Who knows if they trade for Giannis? Same thing with the Orlando Magic. And that's your top 8 in the Eastern Conference. So it is very matchup dependent for the Raptors in terms of what kind of teams they can tackle, what kind of teams they are favored against, what kind of teams they match up well against. But overall, when it comes to their offense and their offense struggling, which is the point of this video, and what I'm trying to highlight here, it all comes down to 3-point volume. And in the modern NBA, if you are losing the math battle, and by math battle, folks, I hope I made it clear. The math battle is the possession battle. The Knicks took more shots than the Raptors tonight. A larger percentage of their shots were 3-point shots. And so you are behind the 8 ball constantly when you are battling 1, 3s with 2s, and 2, you're allowing them to take more shots than you. So it's a combination of turnovers, 3s, and not being able to generate enough of them that really puts the Raptors at a disadvantage against teams like the New York Knicks. They have tons of time to figure it out. We'll see if they maybe figure it out at the trade deadline. But it's just something interesting to keep in mind as this team prepares for the NBA playoffs. It's a good thing to do, prepare for the NBA playoffs. It's a good position to be in, to be able to prepare for the NBA playoffs. I mean, man, we were talking about the lottery at this point last year. So I think it's a very, very good position to be in comparison to how it's been the last few years. But it's just something to keep in mind as we move forward. Folks, the Orlando Magic are next. It is a national TV game. I like that matchup for the Raptors. They can be physical, and the Magic don't shoot threes, so they can be okay. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do the things that you guys usually do to help out, get these videos to other people. We appreciate you as always. We'll see you on Friday for Orlando. Peace!